lot of hackers rely on like the apathy that people have. They're like, I'm just going to use the same two passwords for everything. So if they get into one account, they know your email address and they know your password. That if they get, say, your Facebook logins, they have the email password, high chances are that that's going to be the same password and email for your online banking or something. You might not care if somebody gets into your Facebook account or even possibly your emails, but it can be a backdoor for them to get into your online banking, or something that can actually cause damage, like financially.
Welcome back to another podcast episode with ProfileTree. This week we're going to be talking about cybersecurity. So it feels pretty relevant and topical given the major news story about the Gmail breach. We're going to discuss the importance of educating yourself around cybersecurity, what you need to know as a business, and what you can also do in the event of a breach or a potential breach. So I suppose just to kind of launch into the story and give a bit of context, what was reported in the media as a Gmail leak, I think it was originally reported by Have I Been Pwned back in May this year, a sort of free online resource or database of breach data, and it's really useful for businesses as a free tool to be able to kind of monitor your online security. Basically, it reported that there were leaked credentials, including also Microsoft Outlook and Yahoo emails, but I think the majority featured were Gmail accounts. So that's why it obviously was such a panic, and that it was kind of maybe slightly misreported as being a Gmail hack. So obviously what we want to try and encourage businesses, and I mean even individuals, of course, because you need to handle your own data as well, is to be very proactive when it comes to cybersecurity. I think there's maybe still a bit of a culture nowadays of like eye rolling when it comes to things like cybersecurity. We recognize that it's really, really important because obviously you're handling personal data, whether it's your own, your team members, or in fact your clients. So it's so important to be proactive and prepared, and also have a contingency plan in place. So that might be SOPs or handbooks or anything that you can basically give your team that can structure cybersecurity and make sure that you're covered. So there's obviously a number of different ways that you can prepare for that. But guys, what do you think in terms of what's the best advice to give someone when it comes to educating yourself with cybersecurity?
I would say always to try take a proactive approach as opposed to a reactive one. As you said, I think when, there's company days on cybersecurity, it's all hypothetical scenarios that maybe there's a 1% chance of happening. So people maybe don't take it as seriously or don't pay enough attention to it, which I probably would have been guilty of myself at a time. But I think when really something is brought to light, like the Google scandal, or the data breach, and then when you're immediately hit by that, people can become panicked very quickly and then try to go into reactive mode. Whereas I think if you do take the time, as you say, to read through documentation beforehand, become prepared, you can take a second breath in that panic situation and you feel better equipped to deal with it. So I suppose it is to take the hypothetical scenarios seriously, because you're very grateful of that preparation work, if the day unfortunately does come.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose it's people maybe not recognizing that if people could do something with your email and say, oh, sure, what would they want with my email login? It's like you have no idea how much is in there, especially if it might be an email address. I know I personally have had my Hotmail address since I was about 13. So there's so many potential logins or information or data in there that anyone could make use of. And it is quite frightening when you think about it. Um, I know that we internally have done cybersecurity courses, and there are a number of different kind of avenues you can explore if you need to educate yourself or sort of your team within cybersecurity. Although, I recognize that some smaller businesses might not be able to invest in doing full courses. There's still other places out there where you can get information. Even the ProfileTree website, we've done a number of blogs around cybersecurity fundamentals and the importance of it, and even things like SEO and AI and how they tie into cybersecurity. I think even local councils or business organizations offer help and advice around cybersecurity, which is also a really good place to go. But yeah, again, you can do paid courses. So what are some of the, especially in light of what's happened this week, what are some of the key things that people need to know and to be aware of when it comes to cybersecurity? And I suppose the key thing is protecting login details, credentials, and passwords. But from your perspectives, like what are the key things that you think businesses should know?
So I think what you guys were saying about being proactive is probably one of the most important things. Like with the Gmail incident this week, like we're quite lucky that as a company we have really strict policies and procedures in place. Most of the staff have had, well, all the staff have had basic cybersecurity training, and a lot of the staff have had, GDPR training and stuff. I think it's really important because we have so many clients and we handle a lot of their online activity and stuff. So we have access to a lot of clients' passwords for websites, for social media and everything. So it's really good that, we have really strict procedures in place. But that's not the reality for a lot of businesses. So I suppose it's kind of like steps where they would start with that. So I think one of the things, we have is that if clients send us passwords or anything, we delete them immediately after use. So to probably check if you're working with other businesses, make sure that they have a strict policy in place that, if you're sending somebody a password, you're not just sending it, straight in an email that, you're kind of, something like one-time secret that you're sending it's kind of encrypted, making sure that it's been deleted, I suppose. And then you kind of move into stuff like password managers and that, I find a lot of clients sending us stuff will send us passwords that you can almost guess. It can be the business name 1995 or something like that. A lot of the time you'll see, or the person's name sending it. It's very guessable passwords. I would say it's rare that you would see something that's, 20 characters long with just different symbols and letters. So it's really important to kind of look at strong passwords. So I think a lot of that's changed now. If you're trying to sign up for like an email account or something, years ago, you could have had, just one word passwords, whereas now you have to have letters, symbols, capitals, and everything. It does get more painful, obviously, trying to remember them, but it is a lot more secure. I was reading something just while we were preparing for this. It was like a lot of hackers rely on like the apathy that people have. They're like, I'm just going to use the same two passwords for everything. So if they get into one account, they know your email address and they know your password. That if they get, say, your Facebook logins, they have the email password. High chances are that that's going to be the same password and email for your online banking or something. You might not care if somebody gets into your Facebook account or even possibly your emails, but it can be a backdoor for them to get into your online banking or, something that can actually cause damage like financially to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's even the basics that people forget is that do not use the same password for everything as much as it can be really tempting. And do not have a password that's your pet's name
Yeah,
and your date of birth. Like it's true, we're all guilty of it at some point in time, but it is so, so important to avoid these things. And I think what's a really good thing that's obviously been introduced over the past sort of decade or so is the two-factor authentication. Now, as much as, we'll all probably groan because there have been those instances where you send a code and the code goes to someone who's maybe off sick or lying on a beach in Spain. And you think, why? But it is so, so helpful. It's almost like an emergency break glass because worst case scenario, if your data is breached and someone could access your accounts, as long as you have that two-factor or multi-factor authentication on, then you've got a kind of safety net. Whereas obviously if you don't, then they're just going to get straight in. Um, and then, so you mentioned obviously password managers, Porrick. So, I mean, this is, something that we would use ourselves and recommend carefully to others because obviously a password manager is great because you can put all your passwords in one place. You can use really strongly generated passwords, like you said, have numbers, symbols, lowercase, uppercase letters. But obviously the downside of a password manager is that if someone gets the password to your password manager, they're like going to be like a kid in a candy shop. They have access to everything. So you have to be really careful. Again, have a difficult password that someone couldn't guess and have your multi-factor authentication set on for that.
I think that's probably the big one with that. If you have a password manager, that you also have 2FA set up, that, somebody, worst case, again, they would have such strict security protocols that it's very hard for somebody to get in. But if they did, then again, somebody can't log into your banking or whatever because, they need a text message code from your phone. So there's, it's a really, really good backup supposed to have for that.
Yeah.
One of the things I suppose even like I myself would have been hesitant about password managers. Even now, sometimes I'm like, I'll put again accounts that I like don't care about into it, my Facebook or Instagram logins, but I feel people are kind of more wary of password managers. I suppose it's probably like a psychological thing more so than anything, like having everything all your eggs in one basket almost. But I think at the end of the day, they are a lot more secure.
Yeah, definitely. And it's better than having the same password for everything because you don't know
Exactly.
how to remember it. Yeah, absolutely. Um, and I think one thing to obviously make sure that people are aware of is if you are a business, you are in some way handling other people's data. Just because you don't have, for example, an e-commerce site that has people's payment details and billing details, if they have at any point, submitted an online inquiry form or anything like that, you are effectively handling their data. So it's all the more important that you want to be in control and understand cybersecurity and make sure that you're really safe in that sense. Um, Another thing that we would probably recommend is that people update their passwords on a regular basis. Regular might differ depending on the size of business or things like that, or what kind of infrastructure you have in place. But I would say even a good rule of thumb is maybe a couple of times a year. Again, it is a huge pain, but it's just one of those things that you need to do if you want to maintain absolute security.
I think one thing that we do really well as well, I've noticed this even since I've started the company from day one, that we would have access segmentation. So, say we would only give access to certain levels of the team. So, if it's managerial access or above, I used to be on, say, the training team within ProfileTree. So, I wouldn't have had access to as much data as I would now in my new department. So making sure that you're only giving privileges to those that really need the data as well, because then there's less likelihood of it being exposed across the entire company. And then if one attack or one account is hacked, it doesn't mean that every single piece of data in the company is in breach, if you have those different exposure limits in place. So I would recommend that particularly for companies that not so much sole traders, but moving into the bigger LTD companies.
Absolutely. And I think that's probably another case of quote unquote laziness
Mhm.
within businesses is it might just be easier. Oh, when you're onboarding the new team member,
Yeah,
just
here's
give them
everything.
everything. And
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, that might be easier, but
Mhm.
again, it's you're showing how vulnerable that you are in places. So it really would be ill-advised. And also, obviously, a key thing is if any business website, again, especially those handling e-commerce data, enable security plugins, like get the best one that you can, and if it's free, or better yet, pay for one that might have more security. I think that's a really, really key thing as well. Um so obviously, worst case scenario, as sort of happened this week and would have impacted a lot of people and individuals and businesses, is that there was leaked data, and hopefully it didn't impact anyone too seriously. I know for us, obviously, because we have such a good infrastructure in place, it was something that we were able to action immediately. But what are some of the things that you would suggest to businesses or individuals to do in the event of either a breach or a potential breach in terms of data?
I think one of the most important things is to just to communicate and be transparent. So I think a lot of businesses maybe shy away from the truth in an event like that. But I think it's something that clients completely understand. They know it's not the business at fault. And you would rather have somebody that's openly communicating with you in terms of the next steps and how they will try to remedy the situation, as opposed to a company that maybe you don't even hear from on the day that it happens. It can really have a negative impact on brand reputation and customer trust. If a data breach does happen and there's no communication with the client. So I would advise that first of all, just that open line of communication and transparency.
Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing worse than someone trying to deny things, or you're
Mhm.
just going to end up getting twisted, and
Yeah.
it'll be a PR nightmare. So
Mhm.
completely, I think it's important to be honest. And I
Mhm.
myself have received like emails over the years from businesses just saying, look, guys, this has happened. We recommend that you update your passwords or delete your account, whatever it might be. So that's definitely really important. And also, it might be very obvious, but update all of your passwords if you think that there's been a breach. Again, it's an absolute pain and you want to try and avoid it if you can, but at the end of the day, it's just something that needs to be done to protect you and or your clients' interests.
I think that being upfront and kind of being active straight away on it is really important. Time is probably of the essence in a lot of these things, that if you have clients or somebody you're sharing passwords with, that you give them notice straight away that they can change their passwords before somebody might actually, because a lot of these like data breaches and stuff, it's, somebody's getting access to files with, hundreds or thousands of passwords. it's rarely, one person and taking all them and trying them. They're put on the dark web and they're sold, it can be a couple of days before, somebody does try it. So like that can be crucial for somebody to go in and reset the password. If you've found out there's been a data breach in a few hours, you can get in there before anybody actually gets access to your accounts. So that's probably a really good step. Obviously, reset your own first and then notify clients or anyone you're sharing passwords with. I think also it's another thing, and I'm not 100% sure if it's a legal requirement, but I think it is, that you contact. So then probably different names. Like down here, I think it's the Data Protection Authority. So it's like a government agency, and it's probably the UK equivalent. It's probably again similar, just probably a different name. That I think you are required to contact them in the case of any breach that may pose a risk to individual users' accounts. So again, if you have clients or anything, and again, I think agencies like that are set up. They're not there to, you know, discipline or anything like that. Like I think a lot of the times they're helpful steps. So if you have a company and something's happened, like somebody has hacked or a malicious ex-employee or anything, they've got access to our users' data. That if you do contact them, they're willing to help. They'll give you guidance and advice on what to do, as opposed to I don't think they're there to implement fines. They obviously do for some breaches and stuff, but that's not their kind of mission. Is not there to fine and punish people. It's to protect users' data. So like they would have a lot of like helpful guidance steps on their own websites, but I'm sure there is contact details that you can reach out to them and they can help you in a situation like that.
Yeah, definitely. That is an important thing to consider as well, is the potential legal implications of a breach. And like you said, it's there to protect businesses and people and make sure that data isn't being mishandled. And there's advice and guidance there. Again, shows all the more important to make sure that you are secure as you can be. But look, these things happen, but the best thing is to be transparent with your clients and absolutely contact those kind of local authorities to let them know what's happened, to just cover yourself. And another thing, obviously, that you can do if you think there's been a potential breach is use sort of online tools like Have I Been Pwned, or kind of basically to run your email addresses or accounts through, just to check if it notes that your data has been listed on any of those online databases of leaked accounts. So just so that you're aware, it's better honestly to check and be better
Yeah.
safe than sorry, of course. Um,
I think as well, it goes back to the benefits of password managers. So like I use like on my phone or on my Mac, I'm not sure what the actual name of it is, like the Apple password
mhm,
manager, so you can store all your passwords. So when you want to log into something, you just enter your phone, your 4-digit phone passcode, and it'll
mhm,
fill in the passwords and stuff for you. But that does have a section where like I'll get an alert like every now and then that this account, that it could be something, like your eBay account or something like this. These logins have been shared somewhere in a data leak. So they will
mhm.
actually send you alerts on your phone. I'm sure the likes of LastPass or something else probably have something similar that they will alert you. Again, it's another proactive thing that they are kind of monitoring for you. So like I think they kind of monitor any data breaches or like that file is kind of shared online. So they would spot that, your email address has appeared in a leak somewhere, something that you may never become aware of. So again, it harps back to the benefits of password managers.
Yeah, definitely. It's really, really important. Um, well, thank you guys. Another interesting topic this week with our podcast. So thank you, and we'll see you all soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.